Thanks for listening and subscribing to DIY for Business. It's Russ and Greg with you. Greg, how's it going?
It is going great. How are you?
Good. I'm a little warm.
You look a
I
little red. You look a
I
little red right now.
well, yeah. Well, that could be either embarrassment or the fact that I just went on a bike ride. Maybe a little of both. I don't know. But I got the sweatshirt on, so going, very business casual today. But I mean, I work virtually, so
You,
not a big deal.
you are right. Speaking of working virtually,
Yeah,
I actually have some big news to share with you.
really. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So you know my daughter, she's been going to law school and plugging away,
Right.
and she graduated recently. Well, she just took the bar a few months ago, and we just got the results, and she passed. She is now an
Oh,
attorney. Yes.
nice. That's very cool.
It
That
is so cool. I mean, it's just such a relief. I mean, I can only imagine how she feels. I'm relieved, right?
the, str- the how is it that we get more stressed than our kids leading up to these things, right? Like I
Well,
get stressed about every little test and all this stuff. It's like, what's
well,
gonna
you'll
happen?
you'll you'll get a kick out of how stressed she was because she says like the week leading up to taking the bar and the week leading up to getting the results of the bar, she was losing hair like
Oh,
crazy.
really?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the hair was
Okay.
just falling out of her head. Like every time she was showering or washing, yeah, she was just
Wow.
losing hair like crazy.
Wow.
So the tie into the virtual thing that you just mentioned is that she works for a firm that is now going to hire her on full time because she just passed the bar. They're creating a position where they love her, and they didn't have anything until she passed. She now passed. They're gonna create a position for her, and she gets to
Oh,
work
awesome.
virtually.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah, and
So
it
wait,
kind of blew.
where is
She's
she
a,
right now?
she's in
It's
Sacramento.
okay.
Yeah, she's in Sacramento, and the firm that she's with covers clients all over California, the state of California. They're actually the one of the largest, or if not the largest, nonprofit law firm in California, and so they have clients all over the place. And you don't meet with your clients in person anymore, or at least the
Wow.
majority of them. You're meeting them virtually over these secured, virtual meeting rooms, and a lot of the cases that are just in front of judges and not, jury trials, that type of thing,
Mhm.
they're also virtual.
Jeez.
So, yeah, it's just a changing world. A
It
changing world.
really
I
is.
mean, you think back of Perry
Yeah.
Mason days, that unheard
That
of,
wasn't gonna
right? So
happen. Exactly. I mean, you had to get there in front of Andy Griffith and whatever. I don't know. I can't remember who. I know there were
absolutely.
all the old shows.
Yeah, even in front
Yeah,
of Harry Anderson, right? I mean, I forgot,
right.
right? Great show.
Exactly. There you go. Judge Harry.
Judge Perry.
Today actually I met one of the well, actually I've known him for a bit, but at my company Beeswax, I met somebody that was the first virtual employee. And I don't know, it goes back to like 2000 or something like that. He's been there for 20 some odd years.
Right.
And they've been doing this virtual thing for a long time, but a lot of companies are just not used to it. Like I try to think like, okay, so I had an entertainment business. Like by nature, everything was virtual because,
Right.
they weren't going to come do, weddings or parties at my office. So, it was like I was used to that virtual thing. But then other companies that I've been with, they're so not used to the virtual thing. In fact, there was one company I was with that like this is like my they're not on my LinkedIn profile, so nobody knows who this company is. So I can talk a little funky about them, but um, uh, they like basically required everybody to come in every single day and to
Yeah.
be in the office at for a certain amount of hours. And I just first I thought, okay, well, it's an office, like that's what you do. And then I thought, how weird this is, because this is like COVID times. It's you people are adjusting to these like everybody's virtual, not
Right.
just one or two people in your office, but everybody all the time. It's a big adjustment. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only is it people that there's the virtual like work and people working remote, but there's also virtual employees now. And we've talked about that on the show, and we're
Right.
gonna do a little more of that today to talk
Let's
to
do
a
it.
virtual CMO, virtual marketing guy, Mark
All
Donnigan. Thanks for
right.
joining
Hey,
us.
guys. It's great to be
Hey,
here.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Hey,
joining us.
So you are a virtual CMO. Tell us a little about
Virtual.
what
I
that
am
is.
virtualized, coming to you
Yeah.
virtually.
Well, I'm sure when you were a kid, everybody would ask, "What do you want to be?" And some people were, "I want to be a fireman," right? I
That's
want to
right.
be, I want to be a cop, and you were like, "I want to be a virtual CMO." So,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. So, yes, I am a virtual CMO, and I work with companies. I work with technology startups primarily, and I help them along the path of needing to grow, needing to expand. In some cases, founders are looking for guidance. Generally, they're technical, so a lot of times they don't necessarily. And I put this sort of in air quotes because many of the founders I work with have become fast students of business and marketing. So they will say, I don't know anything about marketing, but I'll often comment, for someone who doesn't know anything about marketing, you are extremely knowledgeable. So, but they're looking for that. I guess you could say, expert guidance or that additional perspective. And yeah, it's great fun, a lot of variety. Allows me to grow my personal toolkit
Yeah.
along the way. So that's what I do.
Well, I'm sure when you were a little kid and you're playing with your Hot Wheels and you're pushing the Lamborghini, you're saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a virtual CMO." Like, it probably wasn't quite a straight line to where you are today. Like, how did you get to this point, and how did you decide that you
Yeah.
wanted to be a virtual CEO CMO?
Yeah, well, it's super interesting. Your setup, with Greg, with your daughter
Yeah,
working virtually, and just the fact that it's no secret, and of course, there's a little bit of a tug of war right now in some companies. With the senior executives wanting everybody back in the office, and
right,
and not necessarily everybody wanting to come back, and and a lot of people I think re-examined, maybe you could say, priorities, or just simply you do have to ask yourself, if for 3 years, or at least 2 years for most of us, we were forced virtual, and not only did our organizations not cease to function, in many cases they expanded. We hired people, the teams grew, and they continued to function, and in some cases got even more efficient because of new ways of working. And
right.
so then you have to scratch your head and say, well, it's not like this is a temporary blip and all of a sudden we're going to go back, to. So I really think that the virtualized way of working is it's an obvious statement, but it is here to stay. But for me, I was working remote, flying, commuting. I was fortunate enough that I guess I was able to find opportunities where I could say, hey, I'm happy to work in the Bay Area, but I'm going to continue to live in Seattle. I'm not going to move to San Francisco. It's like my family, my friends, and everything's in Seattle, but I'll be happy to fly in. And I was fortunate to have companies that said, hey, no issue, no issue. Great. Let's do it. And then I live in Phoenix now. And so, so wherever I was. So for me, this whole virtual thing was just it's just called working. So now I am speaking about location virtualization. I think what you're really asking is, a virtual executive typically works with, a small number of companies simultaneously. And there's many different models. There's different ways that people like to work in that manner. But for me, I just work with a very small number of companies at a time, and we'll sometimes be doing some more advisory, or you might say kind of your more traditional consulting. Where somebody might say, Mark, we just would love for you to be available. Maybe we'll do a call once a week, and when there's an emergency, something pop up, to be able to get your expertise, kind of have you on standby, for
Mhm.
when we need that expert guidance. So, but really hands in the dirt. I work with just one, two, maybe two and a half companies at any one time, but very small number. And it's the variety that personally I really enjoy, being able to see slightly different views of the market. I largely stay in the same market, in the same industry, that is, but just seeing different views of the market, being able to really contribute in ways that really move the needle. And I feel like so much of being a full-time, especially an executive, a leader, you're just kind of sometimes you're just drugged down in just the stuff that has to be done. There's the quarterly reports and the, employee reviews and it's all stuff that has to be done. But as a virtual executive, I just get to come in and I get to do the fun stuff, i.e. the really impactful stuff. And I love it. It's a perfect fit for kind of my personality, my temperament, and and it works really well for my clients as well.
For working with a number of companies in the same industry, do you find yourself giving them kind of the same advice? Is it the same thing over and over again, or is it different and unique per client?
It's a great question. It's different and unique. It doesn't, because so it's different and unique and the same at the same time, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
one of the things, that I find is that the challenges of business are largely universal. And as much as we're all, if we're in sort of a mid-sized organization, the mid-market, we can think, it'd just be amazing to be in a big company, and have more resources, have a larger team, or, whatever it is we feel we don't have in that mid-market. If you're in a smaller company, if you're in a big Fortune, 1000, Fortune 500, it can feel like it would just be amazing some days to not be encumbered with all of this, corporate stuff and just being a startup,
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, there's challenges on all, and they are different. And yes, there can be, and there definitely are advantages, in each of them, right? And they're different and distinct. But the fundamental challenge of business is universal. Whether, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and so whether I'm the local, pool and spa reseller, or I've got an air conditioning company, or I have a tech startup, or I work at Intel, Intel has a major campus just 20 minutes from where I live. Some of the challenges are a little bit similar, they really are. Scale, scope, the way you address them, the tools that you have to address them are different for each, but that's business. So it doesn't mean that you come in with a playbook, but what it means is that the pattern recognition really can be helpful. And this is where there's an acceleration that can happen working with a virtual executive, because it's not that I bring in, or, any of my peers or anyone else who's, working in a similar way is necessarily any smarter. And you could say, yeah, but you have more experience. Well, really what that just translates to is being able to see patterns more quickly, being able to get to root of problems, being able to, Elon Musk really likes to talk about first principles, and really first principles is just getting to the root. And so I think that's what, what I can bring and what I bring the companies that I work with.
And I know you work with a lot of companies and kind of tech startups. And I used to, be in the tech industry, and I did a tech startup at one point in my career, a past life, as they say. And, one of the challenges that our founders had was they had this great technology. They understood technology, but they didn't know how to communicate that technology to an audience so they would understand the benefits of it. They
That's
didn't know
right.
how to get that message out there in a proper way. They just knew how it worked, and it was
Sure.
really, really cool.
And we're really happy to tell everybody about the
Yeah.
incredible details of the technology, right?
Yeah,
And why
and
it
they're
was
just gonna
special.
understand it, and they're gonna wanna buy
Yeah.
it, and,
Yeah.
every media company in the world is gonna want this, and,
That's
that didn't
right.
happen exactly that way, right? We had to figure it out on the marketing side. I think that's what you work with your clients on is like, "Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
do you message this? How do you brand this? And how do you educate
Mm-hmm.
people so you can build an audience?"
Yeah. Yeah. I call it the, if you build it, they will come syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
and, and by the way, one of the things I'm super passionate about is actually this issue because, it's my observation that nowadays most companies that fail, and we all know, especially in startups, the startup statistic, and 90% plus will fail, and there is a meaningful percentage. Now, I don't know if it's 50%, I don't know if it's 40, I don't know if it's 70%, but it's a meaningful percentage of those failures that didn't have to happen. And here's what I mean. The failure was not they couldn't deliver on their promise. They made a claim, this technology, what it could do, and it didn't work. That is occasionally, obviously that happens too. Sometimes it's a moonshot and it just we didn't make it. Sorry, the rocket ran out of fuel, and and okay, we tried. Let's try another one. We'll try tomorrow. So that can happen, but that actually is not always why the company fails. Why they fail is they fail to engineer the market with the same attention and care that they engineered their solution or their technology or their product. Right. And this is where that if I build it, they will come falls in. And so they put together an amazing technical team. They identify a real need in the market. They develop a solution for it. And then they step back and they wait. And then nothing happens. So then it's like, oh, okay, we just raised a Series A, we've got $20 million in the bank, or a Series B, and now we can pour fuel on the fire. Let's expand the marketing team. Let's go hire, somebody from our competitor or an adjacent, company, somebody, that we think, and they're going to be our savior. Pay them as much as they want. We hire them and hire 3 or 4, folks that they refer in. That's going to solve our problem. And it doesn't.
Right.
Oh, we just need a new head of sales. Boy, we thought that, Joe was doing awesome and we replaced Joe with Sally, and boy,
So
now,
why doesn't
we're not.
so why doesn't it work?
Goes on
Why
and
doesn't
on.
it work for them?
Because the problem is that they're often hiring and they're building they're hiring people who are coming from incorrect context. They're coming from contexts that don't map. So, a famous one, especially in SaaS, is you hire someone out of HubSpot, someone who was 9 years, made, incredible company, right? They were there for 9 years. They advanced in their career. They're now a vice president. Okay. And whatever function, fill in the blank, whatever. And you say, whoa, we're building we're a SaaS company. Yeah, we're not exactly in the CRM space, but we're in the, in the customer data platform, or we're doing something that's adjacent to it. We just need to get someone senior out of HubSpot. And they're gonna know what to do. They're gonna know how to execute the HubSpot marketing playbook. The problem is that you're not HubSpot. You don't have HubSpot's budget. You haven't invested, you meaning the startup, haven't invested, 15 years in inbound marketing like HubSpot has. So this person can come in, accurately describe what the playbook is, but it's largely not going to work. What you need instead is someone who's a problem solver. So you need someone who's a student of business. You need someone who has a toolkit. They obviously have to understand how marketing works. or sales. They obviously have to understand, they have to have tools. They also have to have played the game. So just having tools but not knowing how to use them isn't good enough. They can't be so far removed that the first order of business is, okay, where's my $2 million to build my team? Even if you just raise that $20 million round, you probably can stretch, but you're not going to stretch to, a $3 or $4 million OPEX budget, $2 million for the team, plus who knows what else, right? That's out of the cards. And so then this person comes in, they really do know their stuff. So it's not that, they lied in the interview or they misrepresented. No, they legitimately were a part of the ride, but it's so different when you have the halo of this, of this rocket, or you're saddled on this rocket that's just shooting to the moon. And yes, you're playing your part, and yes, you're contributing, but guess what? The rocket is going in that direction, and there's really not anything you're going to do to slow it down, stop it, change the trajectory. You're just going to hold on and make sure you don't fall off. And too many startups hire, and it's just the wrong stage. It's the wrong context, and that's why they fail. And it's that loop, and that's usually when I get engaged. As a founder will call, and quite often, by the way, I will get, through the initial conversations, it will be said, overtly, or it will be implied, like, because I'll always ask, well, so who did you have before, and what did the team look like, and are you rebuilding? Why did they leave? And it's like trying to understand. And I'll hear some version of, they were actually incredible, and they had such high promise, and they did these good things, but at the end of the day, after 14 months, 16 months, 18 months, there was no business impact. We're not sure what happened. And I always say, you know what? It wasn't them. Wasn't them at all. They didn't trick you. You're right. Everything you perceive is true. And in some cases, I've known some of the people. This is when the light bulb went off, is when I had a few conversations where I knew of because of circle of, just network. And I went, that person's actually really good. A great hire. Why did they fail? And again, in air quotes, why did they fail? Well, they failed because the founder, again, product market fit, or really understanding what the need of the market was. The product actually didn't directly intersect with the need they claimed it did. They didn't really have product market fit. That person's going to be executing a certain playbook that's either wrong or wrong for the stage. And so therefore the whole thing falls apart. Sad thing is the founder just burned, who knows how much money, and now they're going, we don't know what to do. We're starting to run out of runway, and, like something is happening here. This is the failure. This is why companies fail. It's rarely because I come in, I say, well, it's like the product isn't, doesn't satisfy a need, doesn't work, et cetera. Rarely. Every once in a while, I'll be pitched something and I go, well, that's probably no need in the market for that. But that is rare. That is so rare.
So, okay. So it's not the person's fault. It's not a bad hire, but how do you know going in when you're like the company listening right now is, that is like, you know what, I need help in marketing.
I need help.
I did hire somebody 2 years ago and we're not getting the results that we want. Like, what do they do like tomorrow when they get into the office or virtual office?
That's right. Well,
what do they do tomorrow?
Look, you just have to be, the first step is, you have to be just honest, with the fact that you have the wrong person. If if you feel a sense of, maybe even a little bit of guilt, but it's like I recruited them away from a great position, or I made them this promise, and, like maybe there's a way. I find it, and I'm a very optimistic person. I'm naturally, my personality, I'm very, very empathetic. And so I also tend personally, my personal bias is towards maybe we can find a way to make it work. Maybe they're not ahead of marketing, but maybe we could create this kind of biz dev slash strategy role.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
that's just kicking the can down the road because we're taking, you know, square pegs, we're trying to fit them in round holes, where even if it is a little bit of a better fit, and even if the company can benefit, you know, because look, people are very diverse. And so it is possible that that head of marketing might actually be, you know, you'd say, wow, you know, they actually really excel in strategy. Like maybe I just need to just turn them loose and just, you know, free them from all the, you know, having to run the marketing team and just they can do strategy. Okay, fine. But is that what your startup needs right now? Most startups need
Right.
revenue, you know, and
Yeah.
let me tell you, we don't
Well,
need more strategy. We need execution. So the first step is you just have to be honest. The second is that the sooner that you make the change, which unfortunately in a lot of cases means that you're going to have to move someone out. You know, there's just no easy way to say it. But the sooner you do that, the sooner you're going to be on the right path. Otherwise, your scenario is you could be headed towards a statistic. I mean,
well,
that's
what
just the sad reality.
I, I guess I'm going to give you two questions in one here. There's the
Yes.
whole like sunk cost, you know, like, well,
Ah, sunk
there's
cost
that issue.
fallacy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's also well, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I set the goals too
Yeah.
high. You know,
Yeah.
maybe like,
Yeah.
is that the problem?
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'll let you kind of take on both of those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's interesting about the question you're asking is that this is inward focused as the entrepreneur, you know?
Yeah.
In other words, you know, this is sort of me as the entrepreneur, if I kind of put myself in the position of someone asking the questions that you just posed, you know, saying, maybe it's just me. Maybe I need to do something. And, you know, look, there's all again. I largely work with founders who are engineers, who are technical, who are product people, and a lot of times come out of these huge companies. You know, might be from Google or might be from Microsoft or might be, and candidly, they never had to. You know, if you're building a product in Google, you don't have to think, gee, I wonder if anybody's going to adopt this.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know, now I know that they've got, I don't know if it's still called X, but you know, I know that Alphabet has their special group that's building all these moonshots and whatever. And so I know that there are people inside Google who might actually be building products. They might actually be asking, I wonder if anybody's going to adopt this. But most of the time, like you're building something and, you know, so, so the challenge is that it's easy to say, I just need more education. It was my fault. The problem is that you fundamentally have somebody who's probably not going to make the leap. You know, they're just not going to make the leap because they're executing a playbook that's the wrong playbook. And so this again is where engaging with somebody who can give you that perspective is super valuable, because what they're really going to do is they're going to validate what you actually know to be true.
Well,
know?
so should it be though that they're contacting you before they're letting this person go? They're bringing you in to sort of analyze to see, or is it let the person go and bring somebody like you in?
I mean, obviously it can happen in all ways, right? And usually, I'm fortunate enough, and I'm fortunate, but I intentionally invest a lot in my LinkedIn presence, and so, and because I really focus on the industry that I'm in, I sort of am a little bit known, and I'm not saying everybody knows me, but I do have the benefit that people will often engage me at different points, you know, and I also work from the attitude that I love to just, I want to see everybody succeed. So if someone just reached out to me, if a founder reached out to me and just said, "Hey, Mark, you know, I love what you do, and you know, been reading your stuff, and can we just schedule a call? I think I could use some guidance. I'll jump on as soon as I've got time. I'll jump on the call and, we'll just kind of, talk it through. And sometimes, that leads directly to me working with them, sometimes later and sometimes never, but so it's not that there isn't like make the change and then, okay, now the deck's cleared, because also sometimes it's really helpful to have that outside perspective. And, now this is true in sales, even more so. I need to replace my VP of sales. They're no good. What tools, like, have you as the founder even successfully, have you done founder-led sales? Now, if the founder has not successfully been able to sell the product, how in the world do you expect that even a rock star salesperson is just going to parachute in and save the day? It does not happen. It doesn't happen in the world today. It just,
Right.
The way the B2B buying process, and again, my context, just to say it again for the listeners so they're clear, I'm talking about B2B. So I'm talking, and I'm also working largely in the context, not of your, like $99 a month SaaS seat licenses. Nothing wrong with that business model, but I'm usually talking about more longer sales cycles, 12, 18 months, sometimes even 24 months, technical integration, deal sizes are 6 figures to 7 figures, so that's the context, because it does shift a little bit, if you say, yeah, but Mark, we're selling $199 a month seat license on a SaaS model, and it's product-led growth. Okay, there's some, there's some shifts, but even in that, there are a ton of examples. You look at Figma. Figma was like founder-led growth for like 10 years or 7 years, whatever. I mean, it's just it's definitely an outlier in this example, but now Figma's, multi-billion-dollar company. And for like 7 or 10 years, I think it took them 10 years to get to $1 million of ARR.
Well, I think in that situation, the founder needed to figure out how to delegate too, and not, do everything, themselves.
Very,
Right?
very possible. And look, I've only listened to a few interviews and read, so by no means am I an expert on Figma, but my point though is that if along the way, they had made the decision, we need to bring a VP of sales in from Adobe, or something. I'm just randomly, ironically, I said Adobe, but, a VP, from some whatever, and they're going to accelerate. Well, guess what? That person would have dropped in there and went, and probably not been successful, and probably, 18, 24 months later, been gone. Right.
Yeah.
And everybody would have been shocked. Like, we don't know what happened. Like they crushed it over here at their last company. Why'd they come here and they couldn't make anything happen? Well, it's like you haven't even figured out how to sell the product as a founder. Like, so.
Well, I'm curious, when people are dealing with you, and we were talking about different stages, and, Russ asked the question, and should they have you come in before they terminate somebody or after they terminate? I want to take it from a different point of view. Should they bring you in first? If they're going to market with a new product, they have this fantastic engineering team, but they don't really have a marketing team yet.
Yeah.
Should they bring you in at that point to kind of give them guidance and help them build the team?
It's super helpful. And certainly what I can do by coming in earlier is help them avoid, burning some cash and frankly, losing time. Nowadays, now cash is as precious or more precious than time even. But even if we rewind the clock and go back a couple years when, people were just, Series A's were $100 million, it's like I remember it wasn't too long ago, like a Series D was $100 million, and that was a company that was really on fire, So there was a time when, money was just absolutely flowing. But the point is that it's the time that gets lost. And so that's really precious. So, I think working with someone, like myself, and again, I'm not trying to promote me. It's about working with someone who can come in and can really give the very clear guidance and advice and work with the founding team and work with the founders as they're making these decisions. So interestingly, I have in multiple occasions been a part of hiring processes for executives where I was actually leading the recruiting effort. And,
Mm.
Yeah,
and
it makes
that's,
sense. I mean,
and
It
that
that,
does
totally makes
totally.
sense.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and most candidates like actually viewed that as kind of like wow, this is actually really cool because this company understands the value. This wasn't, and this wasn't me as a recruiter. I was not being, my engagement was not, oh, Mark, here we'll pay you a typical recruiting fee if you can come help us find someone. It's like, no. I wasn't being paid a recruiting fee. I was just being paid my fee to be a virtual executive and give them the guidance and yet some people kind of scratch their head and go, this is a little weird. Like, shouldn't this position, shouldn't you be this? Like, why are you actually doing the interviewing for a job that it appears like you could be doing,
Right.
and so, but yeah, that's and that's super, super helpful because again, and then I tell, the team that I'm working with, I say, look, the beautiful part is that I am here only to see you be successful. So if I give you feedback, either on a candidate or there's, a certain direction, it's to make you successful. It's not, I don't have an agenda here. Otherwise, I would already be in the role, because we're working together, right?
Right.
And so I don't have an agenda. So if I, advise you in one direction over another or give you input, like, that doesn't mean you have to take it, of course, but, know that it's given from a very pure place and it's given from a place that, you're paying me or, I'm here because you're looking to improve. So.
Well, so I always like to, try to give the listeners like actionable advice today. And I think, one of the bits of that is like is something, that I feel like said a bunch on the show is like do what you can, but when you feel like you're stretched in a certain area, reaching out to somebody else for help is okay. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling in advice, whether it be, for the, finances or for HR or for marketing, like whatever it is, like pulling somebody in where that's
Mm-hmm.
their area of expertise can, send you a long way forward.
It's interesting in the kind of the solopreneur space. There is a real heavy orientation towards masterminds,
Yeah.
and um, and some of these are shockingly expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, like $20,000 a year is a cheap one. I mean, I've heard of some they're like 100,000, 150,000 a year. I'm not a part of any of those, but I have heard of them. They do exist. And what's interesting to me is I actually haven't thought of it before, but it's coming to me now. And so maybe it's helpful for somebody. It's interesting how individuals seem sometimes to be more willing to invest in mentorship and usually through like these mastermind groups, which the whole premise is, there's usually a person or maybe a small group of people who, are further down the path and can help and advise and give support and train education. And then you also have the community aspect of it. And I definitely believe in that. I mean, I believe in the value of the community and all of that. But it's interesting how sometimes individuals who in some cases are still not actually making a lot of money in their business will take what little resource they have and yet invest in like one of these masterminds. And yet a business which has raised money, a whole lot more money, sometimes is a little bit more hesitant to invest in consulting. It's super fascinating, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
there's actually a reason why, though. It is explainable. The term consultant means so many different things. And a lot of times it used to mean, now this is less so today, but it used to mean sort of an executive who was in between full-time jobs, and it was, it was a way to, maybe put some extra money in the bank account, pay the mortgage, whatever, which is great, which is completely valid. But that person was always basically using that as a bridge, to their next full-time job. So therefore, yes, they're consulting. Yes, they're there to help a company, but they're ultimately there to get hired, into a
Right.
full-time job. And so that causes them to, maybe make different decisions or even offer different advice or to even act in a different way. And then you have the model of the big consulting firms where, they come in with just their their standard playbook and they sort of execute, whatever their playbook is, right? And you've got really smart but usually younger business folks who are just recently got their MBA and they're executing a playbook. I'm not saying that doesn't have a place, but in startups, it doesn't have a place, but so that's in some people's minds. And then candidly, there's a smattering of consultants that maybe, came in and they really didn't add much value and people kind of went, yeah, we hired a consultant one time. And so I think the point is that the word consultant does mean different things because there are the consultants that are sort of the PowerPoint hand waving strategy people. And then there's very, very, very few that get their hands in the dirt. And so the challenge as a startup founder is that you don't probably need more strategy. A founder already has plenty of strategy and ideas. They need execution, and finding somebody who can execute is where the challenge can be.
I have an alternative thought on this theory. And I think there's a lot of founders that want to be the hero and they don't want to show signs of weakness. So they go to these masterminds, right? They gather all this knowledge because their intent is they're going to be the hero to figure out how to go to market and
They bring the solution back.
bring the solution back out of them versus hiring consultants. And all of a sudden the consultant looks like, hey, you needed to hire somebody to come in and figure it all out and solve your problems. And they don't want to admit that. So they don't want to hire a consultant. They're going to go the mastermind route.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
There's a lot of personalities out there that's their motivation.
Yeah. And the fear of consulting. So I used to work in radio, right? And whenever a radio station would hire a consultant, that meant that the program director, the music director, and a bunch of the on-air team was out. Maybe a few salespeople would survive, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's that fear. In fact, there was an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati that I just watched recently. It's over on YouTube, where a consultant came in and everybody freaked out because they all thought they were going to get fired. It was pretty funny. So I think that there's that sort of, that feeling of, well, if they're going to hire a consultant, is this going to hurt the team morale? Is this going to, so there's a little stigma there, I guess, around consultants for some as well. Greg, I like that point is also because I do feel like a lot of people, well, they want to be the smartest person in the room, or they want to be the hero, like you're saying, and hiring somebody else to bring them in is sort of admitting that they're not right. So yeah. Mark, if somebody wanted to bring you in and find out more information about the services that you offer, how do they do so?
Yeah, so my website is growthstage.marketing. It's a .marketing domain, so it's
I didn't
not
even know that was a thing.
marketing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's growthstage.marketing. And really, I've got a lot. I have some mini books up there. If you're interested in category design, if you just want to learn more about product market fit. I've written a lot recently about account-based marketing, ABM, and everything is in that B2B sales motion.
Very
If
cool.
you're a startup, and you don't necessarily have to be a tech company, but if you have limited resources and you're trying to figure out, and you sell B2B and you're trying to figure out how can I do more, and not with the constraints I have, I think you'll find there's some real helpful information there, and on LinkedIn as well. I'm just Mark Donnigan. You can find me. I'm very easy to find.
Awesome. I think that's how we found each other, right? Was
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So there you go.
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So
Nice.
it's
Well,
Nice.
thanks for joining us tonight, Mark.
well, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
I did
Yeah,
too.
thanks for joining us. And also thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing DIY for Business, wherever you're listening to us, or watching us actually over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, hit the little bell so you know when we're getting new episodes out. We're doing new episodes every other week, and we'd love to feature businesses like yours right here on the show. If you would like to be a part of DIY for Business, just head over to our website, DIYforbusiness.com. Fill out the form there, and you can join us just like Mark did here. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to DIY for Business, where you are not alone.